You've probably wondered why things feel harder for you than they seem for others, why your mind doesn't stay quiet, why you overthink simple decisions, why you question things most people accept without pause. But here's something strange. The people who struggle like this are often thinking at a level others never reach. And maybe you've mistaken all of that for weakness. But what if it isn't? What if the very patterns you're trying to fix are actually signs of a different kind of intelligence? Stay with me, because by the end, you might see your mind completely differently. There's a quiet struggle that doesn't get talked about enough. And if you've felt it, you already know how invisible it is. It doesn't look like failure from the outside. You function, you get things done, you show up. But inside, there's constant noise. You replay conversations, you doubt your choices, you notice things others don't seem to care about. And here's the part no one tells you. The more aware you become, the harder it is to feel at peace. Because the world rewards speed, certainty, confidence without hesitation. But your mind doesn't work like that. It pauses, it questions, it loops. And that loop might not be a flaw. It might be a feature. In psychology, this is often linked to higher cognitive processing sensitivity, which is just a complicated way of saying your brain doesn't skim reality. It dives into it. It takes in more, processes deeper, connects more dots. And that creates something unexpected, clarity mixed with overwhelm. But here's the shift most people never make. You are not broken. You are processing more. And processing more changes everything. Imagine two people looking at the same painting. One sees colors, the other sees emotion, history, technique, meaning. Now ask yourself, which one sees more reality? That's what your mind is doing. It's not inefficient, it's layered. And intelligence, especially the quiet kind, often hides in that depth. Let me show you what's actually happening inside your mind. Think of your brain like a network of roads. Most people use highways, fast, direct, efficient. But your brain, it uses side streets, back alleys, hidden paths. Which means one important thing. You don't just arrive at answers, you explore them. This is linked to something called default mode network activity, a system responsible for reflection, imagination, and internal dialogue. And when it's more active, your mind doesn't just react to the world, it quietly builds a version of it, running simulations, testing outcomes, connecting possibilities. Useful, but also mentally expensive. Now here's where it gets interesting. These patterns you've been worried about, they show up in very specific ways. And once you see them, you can't unsee them. You overthink simple decisions. But what looks like overthinking is actually layered thinking. You don't just choose, you evaluate. Every option branches into consequences. Every outcome plays out in your mind. Here's the hidden truth. Your brain is trying to protect you from regret before it even happens. You notice small details others miss, and sometimes it makes you feel paranoid. But pause for a second. What if you're not over-noticing? What if others are under-noticing? A tone shift, a pause, a micro-expression. Your brain catches patterns quietly. That's not anxiety, that's detection. You question everything, even things people accept without thinking. And that can feel isolating, because certainty is social currency. But questioning, that slows everything down. Still, it's the only way truth is refined. You feel mentally exhausted after social interaction, and you might think, why can others handle this so easily? But they're not processing what you are. Expressions, words, subtext, intentions. You're reading between the lines, while others are just reading words. No wonder you're tired. You struggle with perfectionism, not because you want control, but because you can see better versions of everything. And once you see that,
It's hard to ignore it. Here's the paradox. Your vision pulls you forward, but also holds you back. You spend a lot of time in your head, and sometimes you wish you could just turn it off. But this is where ideas are born, where problems are rehearsed, where futures are imagined. Your mind isn't wandering, it's building. You doubt yourself often, which feels like weakness. But think about this. Only someone aware of complexity can truly doubt themselves. Confidence is easy when you don't see how much you don't know. You prefer depth over small talk, and it makes you feel disconnected. But surface-level conversations don't feed a deep processing mind. You're not difficult, you're just not designed for shallow inputs. You learn from patterns, not just information. You don't store knowledge, you structure it. You see connections others overlook, and that's where real understanding lives. And then there's this quiet feeling. You feel different, not in a dramatic way, just enough to notice, and not enough to explain. And that feeling comes from seeing the world through a different lens. So let's simplify everything into one idea, because once you see this, everything clicks. Your brain is not a spotlight, it's a prism. A spotlight focuses on one thing. A prism reveals what's hidden inside it. More colors, more layers, more meaning, but also more to carry. And this is where everything changes, because maybe the problem was never your mind, it was the way you were measuring it. In a world that rewards speed, depth feels like delay. In a world that values certainty, thinking feels like hesitation. But look closer, and you'll see something else. Intelligence isn't always loud. It doesn't rush. It doesn't perform. It doesn't need to prove itself constantly. Sometimes it pauses. Sometimes it questions. Sometimes it sits quietly observing everything. And sometimes it feels like being lost in your own thoughts. But maybe you're not lost. Maybe you're exploring a depth most people never enter. And learning how to live with that, not fight it, not silence it, but understand it, might be the most intelligent thing you ever do.